simple rant posted on the social networking site Facebook on the pork barrel scam became the call for action and change that many netizens waited for. The message became viral, and soon many volunteered to organize what would be known as the Million People March, which was to be held at the Luneta Park on National Heroes Day. Social networking sites Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram were abuzz in preparation for the rally, asking people to wear white to symbolize change and to show non-partisanship to any organizations. On August 26, thousands marched to Luneta Park, while hundreds more were already stationed at the park. Pictures of the rally were posted on the social media, prompting even more people to come and join the Million People March. Organizers and participants are ready to say that the fight for change is still ongoing, especially now that social media has become one of the most powerful tools to disseminate information, keep watch on the government, and now to assemble rallies for a better nation. Good evening, you are watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. Sitting in for Jing Magsaysay, I'm attorney Karen Jimeno. Joining me today are Carlos Saldran, performing artist and cultural activist, and Nika Dumlao, internet freedom advocate for the Foundation for Media Alternatives. So let's start first with something very significant that happened this week, the Million People March. And this was very impressive. It was even picked up by international news like BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera. And this all started with social media, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It started, I believe, with a tweet from one lady, you know?
It's a tweet, not a...
Yes. And then it became, it was actually kind of hard somewhere like to find who was actually the real true organizer and the person, because it was so fluid on social media. So actually we can say that this is probably the first truly social media represented Philippine protest action.
Yes,
yeah.
It was very powerful because it was not only in Luneta, but all around the Philippines.
Yes,
you had
yes.
Cebu, Iloilo, Baguio, for instance. I guess, does this show that social media now is a game changer for the political and civic consciousness or activism scene?
Well, definitely. Kasi meron talagang mga online actions na nagtatranslate sa offline mobilization. So I think it's game changer in the sense na people can have a voice sa nangyayaring kuro-kuro or discourse.
Do you think the Million People March achieved its purpose?
Yes, I believe that the Million People March showed that we have a voice. We all have a voice. And na-inspire and na-influence din kahit papaano yung government officials and majority of the population na wow, 'di ba? Ang daming gustong makialam, gustong magkaroon ng say sa government.
And how different was this movement in a sense, yung mga nag-attend ng rally from other rallies that we've seen before? Kasi nagkaroon na ng EDSA 2 or even EDSA 3 or rallies here and there. So how different was this?
I think what made this different was how organic it all was and how it remained organic until the very end.
Yes.
There was no real political statement given out. Nobody hijacked, and actually there were probably attempts for people to hijack the message, but people kept themselves in control. It was very nice because it showed that Filipinos can self-monitor themselves. At the end of the day, there was also no hakot.
Okay, hakot.
There's no hakot. Okay.
Yeah, that's really a rally concept.
And that's a really
no?
kind of rally concept,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to get numbers like 1 million. If you look at any other thing happening on Kino Grandstand in the past, for you to reach a number that was as impressive as we had, there was some element of having a bus, some element of getting some NGOs or some other civic groups incorporated with a bus, a set meal, you know, and a system of coming in and out. But this one was really a peaceful gathering of people with their own personal agendas collectively speaking up. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, we noticed as well that a lot of the attenders were maybe middle class, at least, and up. And I think this ties with the use of social media, which is limited to still at around 25 to 30% of the population.
Yes.
Do you think in spite of that it's limited to middle class and that small percentage of the population, that social media will still continue to be a powerful tool in terms of the political stage?
Yes, I think it will still be a powerful tool, and it can, as I said earlier, you can translate that to offline complementary offline actions like focus group discussions. You can have barangay assemblies, right? And inviting people through social media, right? So that can this will be an inspiration for everyone to really harness the power of social media to mobilize not just the middle class or the people who are already connected, but also those who are not yet connected.
So do you think there's a way to reach out to the non-internet users?
Well, this Million People March is not just online social media powered event, but also offline, because as for the volunteers of the Million People March who tried to prepare for the logistical requirements of the whole event, we have to have meetups, right, offline gatherings, so that people who are not that updated online will be there.
Do you think this Million People March is just the beginning of a longer process?
Yes. And I think, and again, I'd look at it, but going back to like whether the social media helps sort of unite. What the social media did, I think, was also help organize the influencers.
Yeah.
So even though some people were not offline, it influenced somebody who had a larger scope. So you can see that it actually kind of multiplied in its effect. So even though you say that only 60% of Filipinos or like 40% of Filipinos are online, when they get offline, it's distributed the information to a larger number.
To those who do not use
do
internet.
not use internet, whether it be because of social class or simply because of personal choice.
I'll ask, since you're talking about reach and also the way social media can influence not only online users but also offline users. That goes with that power, of course, is the cliche, responsibility. So what do you think about what they call troll accounts? Or basically, I've also heard that some politicians or even the government also funds internet groups in order to either silence or counter genuine sentiment coming from social media.
Well, just like cyberbullying, right? You can always counter these things, but you have to also, as I said, you have to also talk to people offline. Because if you talk to people offline, then you can convince them to go online and mobilize against these groups na may hidden agenda.
Okay,
kumbaga.
so totoo talaga na gano'n? Meron mga troll accounts?
Yes,
for
there
sure.
are.
But I don't think there is enough of them to really. It's not easy to be a troll.
Yeah.
and trolls are not really sustainable. At some point, they have to close down and make another account. And that's how you can tell who is a real account and who's real. Like the longevity, the amount of friends, the sort of kind of organic posts that come up. After a while, it is easy to tell who is a troll and who is not.
Yeah.
And trust me, it's not, nobody can really make a business out of it. And if somebody says that they can make a business out of it, please, that person is trying to get your money.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those out there who, of course, want to get involved by going online and following people who, of course, start movements like this, it's easy to spot kung ano yung troll at yung nanggugulo lang.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, another would be, how do you think social media will play a role in pursuing continuous change?
Well, social media is tricky actually. It can be used to reinforce, marginalization, oppression, but it's a lot of, more and more advocacy groups are harnessing, the power of social media.
Do you think
to
this is
expose? Expose corruption, right? Civic groups like individuals like Carlos, diba? They use it to expose injustice and abuse. So I think it's better to it's better now that they use blogs, use
because
Instagram.
that was my next question. The Million People March was about the anger against the pork barrel scam.
Yes.
So, but that's only one aspect of corruption.
Yeah.
So my question is, how far can social media go in really trying to significantly reduce or eliminate corruption?
Well, I think what we should, as netizens, I don't know if I really like that word. It's kind of corny. What we should start doing is like not only just start talking about, but like start getting down to the root of what is the problem out here. Since we've begun the discussion, let's just not stop at pork napoles. Okay, we have to move on from pork napoles, and we have to start moving on from Congress, and really truly look at the system that created this, and that is the Philippine Constitution. So hopefully, I think this whole Napoles thing is actually a battle cry for us to reanalyze the constitution of this country and what really makes us run. Because the reason why a lot of congressmen, a lot of people aren't talking about this BDAF thing is because it's always been inside our law. It's perfectly immorally legal.
Yes,
Right?
it had the wrong system of incentives. It actually caused a lot of incentives.
And it's a product of the flaw of the system that we have, which is a presidential patronage system. As long as you have little dictators in Senate and in Congress that are going beyond their job as being legislative. Because remember, congressmen and Senate really in the United States, and it's the true spirit of the word, they're supposed to be helping laws, not funding projects. Have you ever heard of Senator Hillary Clinton's basketball court? No. You've never heard of Senator Hillary Clinton's like bus shed.
Yes.
So these people should actually really just be pushing the laws and using national funds in order to fund their projects. But since the Countrywide Development Fund was created underneath Corazon Aquino, in order to move herself along when she hit a gridlock in Congress and Senate when they're about to kick her out. She created the Countrywide Development Fund in order to make everybody love her again. We've been using that system of patronage from that time until now.
Yeah.
And I hope now we actually can look at it and just not actually pinpoint people, but we pinpoint the system.
The system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think social media, because that's an entirely different ballgame now, changing the constitution and just fighting corruption, which is actually pork barrel is one issue. So do you think social media has that power to really institutionalize change this time?
Well, the social media is just a platform to mobilize people to know, be aware, be informed, know what the alternatives are. Because yes, constitution, but some people will not agree that to change the constitution.
Well, not the entire thing, but the thing is we have to analyze it.
So I think this is also a challenge to the groups who have been working for the abolition of the pork barrel system from the very start. Like there are groups who are very active, and they were not really that loud. I mean, their voice are not that loud with the Million People March, because the Million People March highlighted individuals. But there are groups who
we're also saying
who research
already,
who researched already, campaigned already, so they can share. Maybe this is a good time to launch massive awareness campaigns for people to know these alternatives.
Okay, I'd like to talk to you more about that after the break. There's still more to discuss with our guests. News Cafe will return after these reminders. You are still watching News Cafe, and we are still joined by our guests, Carlos Silran and Nika Dumlao. So, more exciting last night. Social media has been a buzz since last night because Napoles has finally surrendered.
Yes.
So, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. What do you think about this whole case, the pork barrel scam, and with Napoles surrendering, how do you think social media will play into all of these?
Well, they were.
Let the carnival begin.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
let the carnival begin. Yeah. That's a good phrase, because it's actually it's time for her to really expose what has been happening in this entire scam. I mean, I don't know, but of course, I also fear. It's better for her to surface alive than dead.
Yes,
right?
for sure.
Because
for
of course,
sure,
if there are many government officials who are connected to this scam, then I just saw this movie, kasi and they try to silence the person.
Oh, I think yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah. That's the new Filipino action movie.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And then, do you think social media will play a huge part in trying Napoles and also the people that she points to as being part of this pork barrel scam?
Yes, yes, they should be there. I mean, we have to what they did in reproductive health bill, right? Sorry. Yeah, so they live tweet it, right? And then people you can crowdsource the comments from the people, or you can crowdsource questions from the social
And the temperature
media.
of the people. Yeah,
Okay.
I have to say, reproductive health bill is a perfect example of how social media pushed an issue along. Remember, reproductive health bill has been sitting in Congress for 16 years.
Yeah.
But from the time that it pretty much exploded back in 2010, when it hit the front headlines, it actually maintained momentum for 3 years until it was finally passed, which is kind of a miracle for the Filipino attention span. I think this whole trial, for as long as it's going to, will probably be the top of our mind until it's resolved.
So do you think social media can help this trial positively in the sense that have it become more transparent or
Yes.
more in accordance with proper
If anything,
procedure?
it'll make politicians sort of run for cover and cover up their tracks and sort of. A lot of people are panicking right now in Congress, and a lot of people are panicking right now in Senate. I'm just waiting to see which are the first names that will be exposed and how the repercussions will be in the coming elections.
Yeah, it will be exciting. I mean, memes everywhere.
Memes, whether it's going to be whether the Liberal Party will come out looking good, whether the Liberal Party will come out looking bad. Will Malacanang look good? Will Malacanang look bad? Will Judge Marbina look good? Will Judge Marbina look bad?
Yeah.
I mean, there's many things factoring here that could affect what 2016. Because whatever blows up now, that scarlet letter will be on them until the next elections.
Okay. And you think social media is important to be there, to be heard the whole time?
Well, I think yes. I think yung mga politicians ngayon, active na rin talaga sa Twitter.
So they really take into
yes.
account yung public opinion.
Diba? Pag halimbawa nag-number 1 trending na ino-okray na yung isang politician na in-expose, diba? Syempre maaapektuhan siya at alam naman
Si
natin.
Soto, diba?
Diba? Si Soto, diba? Dadamdamin talaga nila yun. And syempre, gagawa sila ng magda-damage control sila. Pero kahit pa paano, diba? Meron talagang effect dun sa nakaka-influence talaga siya sa decision-making ng government official. And I think we have to just continue yung ganon. Kasi para makita talaga ng mga politicians na sorry kayo, pag marami talaga is powerful.
And, in 1996, there was already a newspaper expose on Inquirer on the pork barrel. At that time, it was still called the Countrywide Development Fund. And actually, after that expose, it was renamed to the PDAF. Now, some people on social media, I've seen some posts, for instance, saying that we should just abolish pork barrel.
Yeah.
And this was also a lot of the cry during the Million People March.
Yeah.
Do you think now, because there's this medium of social media, which was not that available in 1996, this can actually spell the difference in order to completely abolish the pork barrel system?
I am also not completely for the abolishment of the pork barrel unless we know what to do after. Because obviously the system of Philippine politics right now lives off the pork.
Okay.
A lot of congressmen, whether they be good or bad, depend on that PDAF to really get some programs going. I mean, not every politician is using the PDAF badly. Okay, that has to be clear. But if we're going to get rid of the PDAF completely, what is going to be the system that we're going to replace it with that will make these politicians and leaders less dependent on a pork barrel to get their jobs done? And that's what we have to start thinking about. I mean, Brandon, get rid of the pork barrel. But then again, what? Right? And my answer is charter change. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
and you think social media is a good gauge for finding out what alternatives would be good for the Philippines?
Yeah, there's this. Of course, people are asking what next, right? It's always like that, you ask people around ano na yung kasunod nito. At maraming gusto talaga na may kasunod. Ngayon, yung kasunod siguro is really alternative. So, kung alternative yan, mahirap talaga magkasundo ng isang alternative lang. So, maybe we can talk about principles,
Yeah,
diba? Principles na mag-guide dun sa
Potential
alternative.
systems that we can replace it with.
Yung principles na mag-guide dun sa alternative natin. So, social media can be a platform na ma-crowdsource siguro yung mga ganitong alternatives.
I'm just curious, how organized is the social media? Kasi, again, the two of you, wala namang kayong connection. But then, of course, you are also both perceived powerful sa social media. In a sense that Carlos said, people listen to you when you speak up. Or with you as well, you were also helping out with the Million People March. So, obviously, you individually have both powers, but you're not even connected to each other. So, with all these different voices in social media, which can be different as well, how organized can it be, or how disorganized can it be, and how can that work in your favor to push for reforms?
I think actually we've gone through enough practice and we're very organized now. I mean, like, just look at that particular march. It could have been an absolute disaster. Okay, I mean, well, there's also some point. Well, also there's at some point everybody's talking about the Million Man March, and the people from Luneta called me up and said, has anybody ever bothered from the Million Man March to call us up and ask for permission to even use the park? I'm like, it's not me, but let me get down to who is in charge of this whole thing. And within minutes, we connected the organizers to the Luneta Park. And the Luneta Park connected the organizers to, so even though it may have been organic, they also follow the bureaucratic system. It is a wonderful moment where there's a mix between cooperation of the government and non-government, private citizens and everything like that. And it happened within days, minutes, and seconds.
Yes.
So I think it'll happen in the same way, days, minutes, and seconds.
Parang sobrang bilis nung proseso na, alam mo yun, every night nag-uusap, every minute may bagong post, di ba?
And this is even without organizing anything formally na, let's be aligned, you and me.
If we try and organize the Million People March in 1992, in the age of cell phone and faxes, it would have been a disaster. An absolute disaster. Nobody would have called up the organizing of the Luneta Park. The police would never have known what was going on. You know, clashes would have happened. But thanks to social media, people already knew the kind of rules to follow before they arrived. You gotta be peaceful, you gotta be creative, you gotta pick up your garbage, you gotta, no political statements. Without social media, no one would have had rules to follow.
Yes.
And then, how do you assess traditional media in terms of now interplaying with the social media? Because sometimes, when I look at the headlines, they're totally different. At least with what I read, kasi I usually complement that when I would read the headlines, listen to the news, and then see kung ano naman sinasabi ng mga tao on social media. And sometimes they're consistent, sometimes they can be contradictory. So how do you think the role of traditional media is with respect to interplaying with social media?
Well, yung may sinasabi si Carlos, pero ang tingin ko dyan, mas ano kasi, pantay, mas napapakitang pantay sa social media kaysa sa traditional media. Pero syempre, meron na rin kasi mga social media counterparts yung mga traditional media, like, 'di ba, yung mga malalaking media companies. Mas relatively mas powerful din sila sa social media, pero sa dami ng, halimbawa kung witty ka, ang daming sumusunod, nagfa-follow sa Twitter mo, or alam mo yun, interesting yung mga ginagawa mo, 'di ba? Pwede mo kasi silang mapantayan 'di ba? In terms ng following, 'di ba? So, yun.
Do you think merong mas may ability na maging slanted pagka traditional forms of media?
Medyo. Totoo naman, parang
of course, as we know, everything depends upon this thing called advertising.
Yes.
So one thing that's good about social media is that since the information is coming from the ground up and not from just one direction going down onto the people, once upon a time, information and media only came from one direction. I wasn't allowed to talk back to my newspaper. How can I talk back to a newspaper?
That's a good point. Yeah.
But now with social media, I can talk back to the person who's giving me the news, and many people can sort of get that information, and that cannot be bought. It really cannot. There's something about the collective consciousness of Filipinos online that can detect sincerity from non-sincerity.
Yes.
So even if a corporation, as most especially a corporation, Filipinos will have the most doubt if a corporation or a government unit comes up with social media. Because if you put up something like that, it does not necessarily mean you will be liked. Figuratively and and literally, right? So as long as we don't taint social media with this thing called advertising, where stories can be held back because of commercial interests, social media will always be the forerunner of what will be the truth and what is coming out first.
Those are good thoughts. Now with Napoles surrendering and of course this pork barrel investigation going, it's going to be exciting. And I can't wait to see what social media will do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for tonight. I would like to thank our guests, Carla Sildran and Nika Dumlao, for being with us today. Join us again next Thursday for another round of discussion right here on News Cafe. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno sitting in for Jing Magsaysay. Good night.
Sa report, di na ba nakasalanan?